Okay, so like everyone's going crazy for the iPhone 16 Pro Max, right?
Hmm.
That new camera and the processor are insane. But isn't it the software that makes it all work? Like iOS 18, that's where the real magic is, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like you can have the best hardware in the world, but without the right software, it's just a hunk of metal and glass.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into iOS 18, especially how it works with the 16 Pro Max.
Yeah, we're going to see how it takes all that powerful hardware and makes it, well, actually do something amazing.
We've got a ton of stuff to go through, articles from McRumors, 9to5Mac, even some insights from a German tech site.
Oh, and of course, we'll be looking at what Apple themselves are saying, their official descriptions and announcements.
But we got to talk about the rumors too, right? All the stuff about bugs and how fast people are adopting iOS 18 and that whole thing with the staged rollout of Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, it seems like the AI revolution Apple promised is kind of, I don't know, happening in slow motion.
It's like they're teasing us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So iOS 18.1, that was like laying the groundwork, but 18.2, which is coming out in December, that's where things are going to get really interesting.
So that's when the AI engine really starts firing on all cylinders.
You got it.
Okay, so speaking of AI, that McRumors article had a bunch of cool features coming in 18.2. Like, first up, Genmoji. Instead of just using those same old emojis, you can create ones that look like your friends.
Oh, yeah. Like imagine sending a Genmoji that actually looks like you,
Right.
Capturing that like specific you look. It's not just a cartoon. It's more like a stylized illustration.
It's like taking personalization to another level.
Right. And I think it could totally change the way we use emojis.
Oh, for sure. I'm already thinking of all the crazy ways I could use that. But hold on, there's more. Image Playground. Basically, you describe what you want an image to look like, and the AI just creates it for you. Is it like pulling images from the internet, or is it making something totally new?
It's making something totally new based only on what you tell it. It's like an art studio, but it's in your pocket. You could be like a cat wearing a top hat, riding a unicycle on the moon, and bam, you've got a piece of art that no one has ever seen before.
Whoa, the possibilities are kind of blowing my mind right now.
I know, right?
Okay, so that's 2 crazy AI features already. But then McRumors mentioned ChatGPT integration too. Like, Siri's getting a huge upgrade, and it could use ChatGPT for stuff it couldn't do before. Now, this is where it feels like, all right, the future is really here.
I know, right? Think about it. You need to summarize a huge report for work. Just tell Siri to ask ChatGPT to do it for you. Or maybe you have a question, like a really complex question, that even Google can't answer. Siri can tap into ChatGPT and get you that answer because it's connected to this massive database of knowledge.
So it's like you've got this superpower research assistant with you all the time.
Pretty much.
Okay, but 9to5Mac at this point, they said, even though adoption of iOS 18.1 has been super fast, like Tim Cook was bragging about it, it's mostly because of bug fixes and like those foundational upgrades we mentioned. People want the really innovative stuff, and 18.2 is supposed to have that.
True. But are we going to get everything they promised? Because there's this Forbes article that's a bit worried about this whole staged rollout of Apple Intelligence. Some of the bigger things they talked about, like an even more powerful Siri, those are getting pushed back all the way to 2026.
So what's the deal? Is Apple just being cautious, or are they falling behind in this AI race?
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean for someone who's thinking about getting the 16 Pro Max right now? They might be getting some cool stuff, but the really big things are still years away.
That's a really good question. It's a tough decision. On the one hand, you've got Genmoji and Image Playground coming in 18.2, which are amazing. But then you have to wonder if Apple is playing it too safe, especially with other companies making big moves in AI. It's hard to say. It really is a crazy time to be an Apple fan like right now, isn't it? We've got this ridiculously powerful phone, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but it's the software that makes it actually useful. iOS 18.2 especially, it feels like we're like right on the edge of something huge, even with them delaying some AI stuff.
You're right. It's like Apple's being super careful with the AI stuff. Like they're taking their time to get it right,
Yeah.
instead of just rushing everything out there.
Yeah, and some people think they're falling behind because of that.
Yeah, true. What do you think about that?
That's your point. I mean, other companies are moving way faster with AI stuff, but I think Apple's more about making sure the experience is really good. Like everything works perfectly and is easy to use. And that just takes time, I guess.
Yeah, so it's more about quality than speed.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, the AI features that are in 18.2 are pretty amazing. Genmoji, Image Playground, ChatGPT, and Siri, those are going to change things. And who knows what they're working on in secret for that even more powerful Siri in 2026. I wouldn't underestimate Apple just yet.
You had a point. Okay, but 18.2 isn't only about AI,
Yeah.
right? There's like a ton of other new stuff that's worth checking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, there are so many updates. It's crazy. For example, Mac Rumors talked about this really useful new feature for AirTags. Now you can share where your AirTag is with someone you trust or even, like, directly with an airline.
Wait, so if you lose your luggage at the airport, you can just like give the airline a link to where it is?
Yep. No more waiting in line at that lost luggage counter, trying to explain what your bag looks like.
That's so smart, especially if you travel a lot.
Right. It's those small changes that can actually make a big difference. Oh, and speaking of small changes, this one might seem tiny, but I think people are going to love it. Now, when you watch videos in the Photos app, you can just see them full screen right away. You don't have to tap to make it bigger.
Oh, yeah, I hate when you have to do that.
Right. It's those little things. They just make everything so much smoother.
For sure. What other little things like that are hidden in 18.2?
Well, there are a bunch, actually. Like, if you use iPhone mirroring, so you can see your iPhone screen on your Mac.
Yeah.
Well, now you can do that even if your iPhone's hotspot is being used by your Mac. Before 18.2, you couldn't.
Oh, that's cool. That's perfect for people who use their iPhone and Mac together all the time. It's little things like that, the attention to detail, that make Apple, I guess.
Totally. And it's why we do these deep dives right. You discover all these features you'd never know about otherwise.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, There's always more to find. And 18.2 has a lot of layers. We've talked about AI, about how it improves the user experience, but we haven't even scratched the surface yet. So what else is hiding in there? Let's keep digging.
Okay. Remember we were talking about how Apple is all about that smooth, polished experience? Well, these next features really show that. For example, they've completely redesigned the interface of the camera app.
Oh, wow. What's different?
Well, the layout is just easier to use and understand, especially if you want to use the more advanced features. Plus, they've added some cool new camera controls. Like now, you can lock the focus and exposure just by pressing a button.
Ah, so that's what that German tech article was talking about. They were kind of vague about it, but it sounds like they want to give people more control when they take photos and videos.
Yep. It's all about giving you more control, whether you just take pictures for fun or if you're like pro photographer. And this actually goes along with another new thing. They've improved the ProRAW format.
ProRAW. Okay, I'm listening.
So basically, they made ProRAW files even more flexible. Now you can control even more things when you edit the photos, like white balance and color temperature. So it gives you even more creative freedom after you've taken the picture.
So if you're really into photography and you want total control over how your pictures look, this is pretty huge.
Definitely. It's like having a whole professional photo editing studio right there on your phone. And speaking of control, there's another thing that people have been asking about forever. There's a new default apps management section.
Wait, really? So we can finally choose our own default apps for email and stuff like that?
It looks like it. It's already out in the EU, but it seems like the US is going to get it with 18.2. It's a win for people who want to customize their phone.
That's so cool. So many people have been asking for that. So it seems like 18.2 is doing a good job of balancing the really big, exciting features with those smaller changes that just make your life easier.
It really is. There's something for everyone in this update, whether you're into AI or just want to make your iPhone work better.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've seen how 18.2 makes the 16 Pro Max even better, from AI to little tweaks that make it easier to use. But there's one thing we haven't talked about yet, visual intelligence. You know how Apple is turning your camera into a knowledge tool. I'm really curious to see how that works. Okay, so we've talked about how iOS 18.2 makes the iPhone 16 Pro Max even better, especially with stuff like Genmoji and all those changes to the camera controls. But there's one thing we haven't really talked about yet. Visual intelligence. What is that all about? Is it like as futuristic as it sounds?
Visual intelligence is where things get really interesting.
It's like it turns your camera into like a knowledge tool. Imagine you're walking down the street. You see a restaurant that looks cool. You just point your camera at it and bam! Information pops up on your screen. Reviews, menus, directions, all right there.
So it's like having Google Lens built right into the camera.
Exactly. But it's not just for restaurants. You can point it at a landmark, like a famous building or a statue or a painting, even a plant. Visual intelligence can figure out what it is and tell you all kinds of stuff about it.
It's like having a tour guide and an encyclopedia with you wherever you go. That's wild.
It is pretty wild.
That McRumors article had some examples of how visual intelligence could work with ChatGPT, right? Like you could take a picture of a historical place and then have Siri read you a summary of its history.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it gets really powerful when you combine the camera with AI. You're not just taking pictures anymore. You're like interacting with the world in a whole new way.
Okay, I'm convinced. Visual intelligence sounds amazing. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we talked about before, the whole thing about how Apple is rolling out their AI stuff in stages. Some people think this means Apple is falling behind in the AI race. What do you think?
I think it's more complicated than that. Yeah, other companies are definitely releasing AI features faster, but Apple has always been about making things that are really polished and easy to use. They don't want to just throw some random AI features onto their phones. They want to make sure everything works perfectly together, and that takes time.
So it's like they want to do it right, even if it takes a little longer.
Exactly. And honestly, the AI stuff they are releasing in 18.2 is pretty awesome. Genmoji, Image Playground, putting ChatGPT and Siri, those are big deals. And who knows what amazing things they're working on for that new Siri that's coming out in 2026. I wouldn't count Apple out just yet.
That's a good point. It's definitely an exciting time to be watching how AI is changing everything, especially how it works with our phones and stuff. So as we wrap up this deep dive into iOS 18 and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, what's the big takeaway for everyone listening?
I think the most important thing to remember is that iOS 18 is not just a software update. It's like a peek into the future of how we use technology. It's all about making the line between the physical world and the digital world disappear. It's about using AI to do things we couldn't do before. And the iPhone 16 Pro Max, with all its amazing hardware, is like the perfect place for all of this to happen.
I love that. It's been so fun to explore all the new stuff in iOS 18.2 with you. We found all these hidden features, talked about how fast AI is changing, and learned how software can make even the most powerful hardware even better.
And hopefully everyone listening now knows enough to decide if the iPhone 16 Pro Max and iOS 18.2 are right for them. Technology is a tool, and it's up to us to use it to make our lives better.
So true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring and keep asking questions.